Guys, the ultimate bottom signal on the monthly Bitcoin chart has been triggered. And that's what I want to share with you today. Make sure to watch the video all the way to the end. This could be a once-in-a-lifetime chance to catch a bottom almost perfectly. And I'll also explain to you in detail how I approach this. Of course, this is not financial advice. But in the past, with this indicator, which I already introduced to you a year ago in my playlist, Trading Learner, Step by Step by Profit Radar, Bitcoin millionaires use this chart to catch every bull market perfectly. Did I already go into detail about that? I know back then it wasn't all that interesting in this regard because of course we were in a bull run. But now it's becoming all the more interesting that this signal has been triggered. And I would also really appreciate it if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, that you do so now. Also leave a like on this video and give me some feedback on what you think about it. So let's take a look at it. The first time this signal was validly triggered. I'll also show in a moment what false signals are and how we can recognize them. An 8.825% increase. The second time we hit the bottom, it was perfect. Timed perfectly, a 1,613% increase in Bitcoin. And the last time this signal was triggered, we saw an increase of 534%. And each time, it almost perfectly predicted the Bitcoin bear market bottom. And now we have the first bar. It's important, and I want to explain this to you. We usually don't use the first bar. Accordingly, I might be a bit early with my positions. Here we have Ethereum. Almost 36,000 US dollars in CoinM, which is what's in here now. I want to increase my holdings here, but the further we fall, the more I would compound. And then I also have Bitcoin, where there's almost another 36,000 US dollars. So we have 0.5 Bitcoins, which is currently also in profit. But I entered that position based on a different analysis. Still, for the past 2 or 3 days, I've noticed, hey, we have the bottom signal. And now I want to show you how I use it, how you can use it so that you don't fall for false signals like the one we just had here. Or also so you don't fall for a false signal like this one here or this one here. I mean, I think it's pretty self-explanatory here. We're in a bull market at the top after a massive rally. Of course, this isn't a bear market bottom, but what we want, and this is the interesting part, is to avoid a possible further drawdown like what could happen here with the first bars. We want to spare ourselves from that and only enter at a real bottom here. And what do you need to pay attention to with this indicator? I'll show you in a moment what it's called and how to use it and which chart you need. But to use it really correctly or to use it validly, that means we have one candle here and we have a second green candle that has lit up here. And starting from the third one, so when the second one is complete, 2 consecutive months with a green bar, then I know I can start entering with the third candle, buying spot, building long positions. That's exactly how I'm going to do it now as well. That's still what I have at the moment. But as we can see here, starting from the third candle where I then enter, the candle does not even have to be completed. At least here, that would have been an entry at 23,000 at the top. The next month within that would have been 19,000, then it would have been 20,000, then another month at 17,000, another month at 16,000 where you could have bought in, and another at 23,000. And then you can see that it went up a bit more. But here, building up an average purchase price for spot buys and at the same time for long positions over the course of several months. Of course, it's extremely brilliant when the market then does this. You couldn't catch it more perfectly than that. We had this for the second time here in this bear market. You have to say that only lasted 2 months, but we really have to be careful here. Of course, we could have entered already at the first green bar. Despite all that, it turned out that the next green bar, when it closed here, had a lower price. Namely, and we can check this, I think from $4,000, the closing price was about another 10% lower. So 7.27%, where you then, with the valid signal, once it was completed, you could also buy in again at a lower price. And then we had another lower signal, which was around 3,404, and another one at 3,800. And after that, the green bar disappeared. And when the green bar dissolves and turns gray, that has actually always been the start of an upward movement in the past. Another one in the past, let's take a look here. We can see it, first bar, second bar, and only from the third one. So when the second one is completed, that's when you can enter. That would have been an entry right here, exactly at this bottom here. Even if we were lower before, you can of course take advantage of it if the price continues to drop. And you don't wait, because if you're already this low, it's a good opportunity to buy more. I would do the same now, of course. But you can see the closes here. If I had done this on the very first bar, I would have had at least a 33% worse entry than if I had actually waited for the second bar to close, as is valid. And 33% is quite a bit. And then came the accumulation phase. I had various price zones between 212 and 258. You can see them here. I do not want to go through each one now, but the bottom one is enough for me. And what happened when the green bar ended? After that, it basically shot straight up and achieved this 8,000% gain just like that. And this is the monthly chart for Bitcoin. And I'm going to use this for myself now as well. I will also keep explaining this in the next videos, how I will continue to analyze it further. Because I can imagine that we are now forming a large divergence on the weekly and daily chart. Very briefly before I show the indicator. Large massive volume zone. I rather suspect that we won't see a massive increase here and shoot upwards. It's possible. We only have one indicator. Of course, it could also be that no further bars appear now. But in the past, it was usually like this. And we know that bear markets or a bottom usually form over a longer period of time. Why is this so interesting, of course? We have now been completely sold off. If we now have a sideways trend for 2 or 3 months, that can be very wearing for the traders. But this is exactly the time when the accumulation phases begin. Not just for us retail investors when we might use such a signal, but of course also for the institutions. And while the small traders try to go long here, go long and keep getting stopped out, for me that's exactly the reason, just like now, to use low leverage. Build up large positions, buy more spot, add to the position, and then really ride the entire upswing. I'm really looking forward to that now. Now let's get to the indicator so you know which indicator it is. Because there's an update. I'm going in here, about the script. Are you looking for the CM Williams VIX Fix 5.3 Ultimate Filtered Alerts? This is a continued version of the previous one that I shared in my video. It also has alerts. For example, it now also shows different entry opportunities based on candle colors, indicating where it would be good to enter. But I would really be careful with that. I also wouldn't use a smaller time frame. I actually only use it as a bottom indicator. Maybe take a screenshot so you can find it the same way in your TradingView. And the second thing, which is super important, definitely do this because otherwise, the signals won't be the correct ones as they should be. You need the Bitcoin US dollar index chart, the all-time history chart. I just want to show this as an example. For example, if I take a Bitcoin futures US dollar chart, you can see it hasn't been on the market that long, so it doesn't have all the old signals in it the way they should be. That's why Bitcoin US dollar, then the index chart, and then you'll find exactly what I just showed you here. And please don't be greedy. I really want to say that, and I'm not either. I've simply made my entry now. Based on the analysis we've done here with targets using Fibonacci levels. Despite everything, I don't think we're going to rise immediately now. That's also the reason why I'm talking about starting to accumulate again, to buy in again, together with these signals. Seeing lower prices, I don't do liquidation hits, man. I don't use level 2 data or anything like that. This video is really just about the indicator, so you can maybe set it up for yourself and set an alert. Yeah, so how do I set an alert here? Especially at the start of the month, you can go in here and then select alert. Filtered entry and alert aggressive filtered entry. You can set those for yourself. Still, these aren't exactly the alerts. I mean, the ones that are really brilliant, because those would be these candles. Instead, take a look at this once a month, see where they are, and please only start from the second candle onward. From the second completed candle, if you say you find that valid, that's how I do it, then it really gets interesting. Because if I do it like this, the way it is now, we also had a price drop here. If I think that was the bottom and then I see I got in greedily and still went down another 66%. Of course, that's not great. That's why I'll definitely keep you updated. If we keep going further down here, that can definitely happen, but that's when I really start to accumulate. At the very latest, the end of March will be the exciting part for me. It would also make sense if we have a few months of accumulation phase so that maybe we see a boring period over the summer, but then we're ready for the next massive upswing. Wherever that may be, we can see that it has always decreased. And if we now say, for example, Bitcoin from this area, depending on where the average purchase is, and we then go further down and say it only goes up 200%, at the top 250, that could mean a Bitcoin price of around 200,000 US dollars. But for now, this should just serve as a possible estimate, because each time we've had a smaller increase, gradually, of course, also due to the market capitalization. It would certainly be very interesting if you say you buy in at 60,000, around 60,000. What else could it be? 65, 70, maybe even below 60,000, but that would be the possible entry zone. And then we could go up to $200,000 or more to have the Bitcoins. And then even a 200% increase, if you have several Bitcoins or Ethereum in your position, like I do here, or even Solana, which you can of course include as well, then you simply say you increase your coins while the price rises. And I make 2, 3, 4, 5, or even 10 Bitcoins in profit. Then when I take my profit, these are all worth $200,000 each. And of course, that's really exciting. So if you enjoyed this, feel free to leave a like. I'd appreciate it. And as I mentioned earlier, subscribe as well. And see you next time.